The discovery of the day. Or should I say, the discovery from the previous day, prompted me to shed some enlightenment on the world based on my own discoveries of this planet. And I decided that the best way to describe it all is to use something that's already out there. You know, things that you're more familiar with, okay? So I'm sure this will probably get some rallying amongst the religious folks, but sometimes people lead others astray, all right? So I'm going to use the name Exodus to prove my point. And I'm going to also use someone that we're very much familiar with. Not in an uncanny way, so don't take it the wrong way, okay? But just to prove a point. All things, all matters of great decor and discussion requires a further look-see, if you will. So, going back into history where that name Exodus first came about, you always have to put yourself back in those time frames to see how things operated back then. Okay? So when they're preaching the word of the Lord to you, just remember, all things, all matters of great magnitude must first be placed back in the time frame in which they first came about or were known to come about. And then in that time frame, the systems that were afloat back in those time frames, okay? So I'm going to use someone that you're very familiar with to drive the point across. Back in the day, back in the ancient days, let's just assume, okay, for a moment, the unknown, which many people are still speculating on how things were ran back in those days. Let's just say, I'm going to use my favorite blood types as a prime example, okay? Which I've already said, I favor, to a large degree, the Huron and the Sioux. And I don't know where that all comes from, other than my picture books from the libraries up in Maine. So where it all originated from. Let's just say, back in the day, that the elders of the land, both to the west, where you would find the Sioux, and to the east, where you would find the Huron, were disturbed in many ways. And so the warriors, who were not old by any stretch of the means, but they were still in their learning stages of their people, of their land, and of this planet, approached the elders and they said, "What is it that is bothering you to the point where we find you in these odd places, pondering many, many thoughts?" And the elders decided to sit down close to a rock And they said to one warrior, I can see it coming. Evil. These evil things coming our way. But I don't know how to warn our people the right way. And so together they sat down and they wrote a line of code. And the warrior said, I will signal them somehow now and in the future so they will know that we were here and we wrote strong code. And together they sat down and they carved out a name. And the elder said to the warrior, if you find yourself disconnected from the home, from your soul, use this as your name. And together they carved out the name Exodus. EXODUS. And they said, in that line of code, you will find your way home. And if you never reach the boundaries of this home, hopefully our people will read the code. And so it was placed out there, and the warrior was separated from his home, and he never made his way back. But the name lives on, and the lesson embedded, almost like the beads of a previous soul, warning the home. The legacy lives on. So, in current day, there are people out there, and I'm going to use, I don't want to say that I have great respect for people or that I'm this great fan of people, because that's not me. I don't practice, engage in, or, it's just not part of my woodwork, so to speak. Jealousy and envy of people that reach these higher magnitudes known as life. But I'm sure he won't mind based on this lesson. I'm only going to use it as a simple example. Marshall Mathers, to himself and to his home, his name is Marshall Mathers. But when he is out there at a distance from his home, he is known to others as Eminem. And it's very similar in nature to what I'm saying. The warriors never used their names outside of their home when confronted